Okay, got it.
Okay, hi, I'm Dee Lisa West, a dream doula and a speaker.
I am Christina Spataro. I'm a psychotherapist and relationship coach.
And we're going to talk about relationships and
Mhm.
space and time today, because how can you be in your own space but be out of your space? Or
Yes.
did I misunderstand that? We're going to kind of drift and dream down the relationship. What if you're in a are you, tell me more, tell me more.
Well, I think, as you know, being a relationship coach and being a human being, I think I am qualified to speak a little bit on this topic of relationships because, when we think about, gee, I want to find that person, right? I want to have that relationship. For better or for worse, a lot of us have the romantic idea in our head of like, it's going to be great, it's going to be wonderful, we're going to live happily ever after kind of thing. But once you get past that initial infatuation and stuff like that, and you actually are two functional adults who are trying to merge each other's lives and still make time for this relationship, it's about not losing yourself in that relationship. And then if you are together, whether you're traveling together or living together, how you can still maintain who you are while honoring the relationship.
Right. Well, when I was younger in relationships, I always thought I had to do a certain thing. I had to be a certain person in order
Mhm.
to be that spouse or that girlfriend.
Right.
A lot of that was completely made up in my own head. Did I
Mhm,
check that with my partner? Like, do you want me to act like this? No, I
mhm.
was just started acting in a way that I thought was the proper way to be a fill in the blank girlfriend,
Mm, mm.
spouse, mother, instead of, is this working for you? I was
Yes.
just thinking the other day, right before I got divorced, I was married for 12 years. I said one day to my very grumpy husband, "What's wrong?" And he said,
Mhm.
"What is right?"
Whoa.
That's what I said. I mean, that was not like an invitation to have a conversation about it. It was just like, obviously, he didn't see anything right in what,
Mm.
and it was toward the end of the end. But what is wrong? Well, what is right? Maybe that's actually a better, more spiritually proper question. Because what is right in the relationship? Everybody loves the beginning time. Everything's
Yes.
so exciting, and you're just figuring, like, this is so cool, and I love that about him, and I
Mhm,
love that
mhm.
about him. And then 10 years later or 20 years later, how do you still see what's right?
I love that. So even though your ex may have meant that in a not so nice way, the I like the premise of let's look at what's right.
Yeah.
Now, looking at what's right doesn't mean you're in denial about the problems. Absolutely not. But the problem is when you do have issues, it's very easy for that to be all that you see.
Yeah.
Like this is all you see because you're seeing the issues and you're seeing the problems. And the problem is when that is all you see and you forget what's right, you forget what it is you actually loved about your partner, it's very easy for the rest of it to get poisoned. So, what is right? And I think part of navigating a real relationship, we're not talking about the Hollywood. They looked into each other's eyes and they knew they were meant to be together forever. And they said, I love you. And he said, I love you. And they kissed and they lived happily ever after. Okay. Or even the modern Hollywood. They've met, they've jumped in bed in a short time. Ah, it's amazing. We're amazing. Everything's amazing. And then they have the conflict. When they get back together, it's going to be perfect. No, it's not going to be perfect. I'm going to go a movie here.
Okay.
I'm going to do a movie. Did you there was a movie called Forget Paris, with Billy Crystal and Deborah Winger. It was, I want to say 90s. It's like it's weird, like the 90s and early 2000s have become this giant monolith. Like I think something's like the early 2000s, like, oh, that was the 90s. And so it was a movie. This guy Billy Crystal plays a version of himself, funny guy, hasn't had a lot of luck in life. And he goes to Paris because his father, his father, who he'd been estranged from, abandoned the family, I guess had his best life when he was in Paris during the war and wanted to be buried there. But the airline loses his father. They lose the body. So talk about your ultimate meet cute. The woman at the airline in charge of helping him is Deborah Winger's character.
Oh,
So it's very sweet. And they have this like lovely time, and they're in Paris, and he's falling in love with her and she's falling in love with him. Spoiler alert, spoiler alert. Then when they actually decide to get married, decide to be together, this is when you see, how do you put two people together, cohabitate, and deal with all those conflicts. And again, they'd fallen in love with each other and they'd fallen in love with all these wonderful things. But then when the day-to-day life kicked in, that was superseding. And this story was actually told kind of in flashback, because it starts with these two couples. One couple just got engaged, and so they're inviting the friends to like see them. And so this couple is talking about how they met, and they're like, oh, I bet we have the craziest meet story. And he's like, no, that goes to Mickey and Ellen, but she basically helped him bury his father. And she's like, what? So the most of the movie is him telling the story of this couple, how they fall in love, their trials, their tribulations, but the idea being that I think it's called Forget Paris because they met in this very romanticized way. And it's about, forget about the romanticized. Now you've got reality. Do you love the person enough to love them in reality?
right. When the excitement of the I just met you and everything about you is awesome wears
Yeah.
off, then you
Mhm.
have an actual person in front of you.
Yes.
And maybe they have an annoying habit.
Yes. Yes.
Maybe that's an okay annoying habit. Maybe it's not.
Yes. Exactly.
Which reminds me, I may have already shared this story with you, but I heard a story about a couple that had been married for like, well, let's say 65 years. They were old.
That's the dream.
It is the dream. And one day the husband, like he has been making every morning for many, 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 many years, maybe their entire time together, and makes her a piece of toast for breakfast. And he gives her, I don't know, the crust, whatever it is, what he thought she loved. And she burst into tears. And she said, I always hated this part of the bread. Now, she probably could have told him that 65 years earlier. But imagine doing something for your spouse or partner or new girlfriend, boyfriend, and you think they love it. But if they don't tell you they don't love it,
How do you know?
And then 65 years later, you're like, what? I've been doing this thing that I think you love, and
Yes.
you hate it.
And you hate it. And why don't you say something sooner?
Yeah. And so how is a good way to start off a relationship? Like, here you are, everything's awesome. You're in Paris, or you're in whatever city you just flew to meet your new guy. Then what happens?
I think, and this is where I'm going to put down my relationship therapist card here, you need to talk. You need to communicate. So many times when I get to couples, they've stopped communicating, they stopped talking, or they don't understand that the communication is forever. It's not just about, gee, where do I like? What do you like? It's everything. It's even talking about things that are uncomfortable, talking about things that are embarrassing, talking about things, because the problem is, I think a lot of times in a relationship, we want to put our best foot forward, right? Because we want the person to like us.
Sure.
And so we keep certain things to ourselves. But the problem with doing that is, I get it. You want to put your best foot forward in the relationship. But at the same time, if you're not being authentic in your communication, They're not meeting the real you. They're meeting the kind of almost you. But eventually they're going to have to meet the real you.
Or
I
not.
say,
I mean, some people keep a secret their
yeah,
whole life from their entire
true,
family.
true.
And then, but we always know there's something else
Yes.
that's not being said. We don't,
Yes.
we don't really know, in the sense we're like, hey, do you have a secret?
Mhm.
Just know that something's not truly authentic.
Something's a little off, and
Yeah.
that's where the problems occur.
Yeah.
Because the minute you don't feel, because so much of a healthy relationship is trust.
Mm.
It's trust, it's communication. I know people say, "Oh, but everybody knows that," or people say, "Oh, that's obvious." No, for something that's obvious, a lot of people aren't doing it. Because I will have couples who will come to me and they're having these major problems, and turns out there was a lot of stuff they didn't talk about before they got together in terms of their basic core of what they really want. And so now they're in this relationship, maybe they have a child or something, and so there's more stakes there, but they never had these initial conversations, which you probably should have had.
About, give us an example. About what? Like religion?
Religion, money. What do you want to do about in-laws? What do you do if somebody gets sick? What do you do if a relative gets sick? You want to have children. How do you want to raise the children? What are your ideas about that? There's some wonderful like little like guides and stuff you can use in relationships. And if anyone wants to come to see me, yeah, I've got them. And I had a client. He came to see me as a single, but he also talked to me about things that were going on in his marriage. Now, what he did talk about was before he married his wife, they did have premarital counseling with like the minister. And
Mhm.
this guy, telling you, must have had a psychologist in his background or a really smart guy. He went above the normal stuff and actually was working with these like sheets with these couples where he was getting into the nitty gritty of what it is you really want. I mean, I think that's brilliant. I think that's what needs to happen. I will always say to people, so many people will spend so much time planning a wedding, but you spend at least a year or more planning a wedding, and they plan every detail, the flowers, the music, everything. And I always say, that's great. But what have you thought about the rest of the marriage? You spent all this time talking about flowers. Have you decided how you want to beautify your marriage? What things are you going to do to keep your marriage beautiful
Well, that's
when
so
time to
beautiful.
come?
And I think also a lot of people spend more time planning a vacation than they do planning a relationship.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And so what, yeah. And that seems like a lot of hard work though. Do people go, I don't want to do that. That seems like work.
Exactly. Human beings, if they have a choice, because I literally was just talking to a client about this earlier. Human beings, if they have a choice, they're going to go for the easy way. Because
Mm.
what? It's easy. It's easy. Okay. They don't, if you have a choice, can I do the easy? But the problem is it's a false choice. If you go the easy way, if you don't have the conversations, if you don't put the work in, you are not going to have the relationship you want. So if you want the healthy relationship, if you want that life partner of 60 years, tell them when you don't like the crust.
Right on.
Tell them.
I saw a couple the other day in a I was at a restaurant and I was overhearing. I got like ears that could go to every other conversation in the room. Ooh, what are they talking about? What are they? And she was asking all these questions, and I thought, is she like interviewing him for a job? Or, and then I realized they were on a date, and she was pulling up all these like deep questions. She was asking him like, would you ever do this? Have you ever done that? What was the worst thing, the best thing, the this or that? And then I thought, That would be the most awkward first date because I don't think they knew each other at all.
Right.
And they were leaving in separate cars. Um,
Okay.
but he was seriously answering all the questions and then
Okay.
she was saying, yeah, and for me, blah, 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 blah. And I thought, all right, well, you go, girl. Instead of like, isn't this a nice cup of coffee?
Mhm.
Getting down into the weeds of
I like it.
knowing this guy or,
I like it.
knowing him in some way. And wasn't there something recently, I'm going to say recently, like the last 10 years, that came out that if you stared into someone's eyes for a certain number of seconds, or if you asked a certain number of questions to someone,
Mhm.
that you would instantly feel connected with them.
I
And
did see something like that. Yes.
it was like suggested to do that on a date, and you'll
Mhm.
either like really connect with them or not at all. And that would be
Mhm.
like the perfect first date. I don't remember what the questions were. I'll have to figure that out. But not the questions this woman was asking her date.
Yeah,
These were deeper, more.
those were much deeper. I mean, I think there is a place for that. So I wouldn't say necessarily have to do that on the first date.
Yeah,
So
okay.
the first date you can keep a little more light. Like, what's your favorite color? What do you like to eat? So you can keep it light, but I do think if you're looking for long term,
Mhm, mhm.
whether I think you have to get to the deeper questions and you can't be afraid of the deeper questions.
Yeah.
Yeah, people may think they're getting to the deeper questions, but you can go even further. And the reason I say you don't do the first date is just because there's layers to people. And to get to the deeper layers, there needs to be trust. And trust takes time to build.
Right,
So,
yeah. Way back when I was looking to get married and have kids. I
mhm,
told everybody, I want to get married and have kids. I want to get married and have kids. I want to get married and have kids. And I would tell people on my first date, I want to get married and have kids. And they're like, Um, good luck with that. I've had a vasectomy.
yeah.
Or um, that's cool. I've had lots of kids. And I was like, what? And then one of my friends said, listen, honey, maybe on the second or third date, not the first date. I'm like, I don't
Yeah.
have time for this. I'm 35 years old. I want to get married and have kids. But yeah, the guy that I did marry and have kids with, we didn't discuss that till the second or third date. But yeah, first date, maybe. How's life? Do you like the weather? Isn't this a nice
Yes.
restaurant? And then you
Yeah,
kind of get that energetic hit on whether you like him enough energetically.
exactly. Exactly.
Physically.
Exactly. So
Mhm.
it's being open to the process. So
Yeah.
if there's the theme today, it's like relationships are hard work. You know, Hollywood has sold us a bill of goods. It's not this perfect magical thing. No, it's hard work. Now, if you put the work in, I will tell you this story. I was walking in the park the other day. I saw this man. He was sitting on this bench, and it was this area where there were benches. You know, I have these benches like dedicated to people,
Right.
like dedicated to so and so.
Yeah.
So he was sitting on this bench, and it was like dedicated to Julita from her husband, Kenny. Kenny was sitting on that bench.
Oh.
I know. I know. And apparently he'd lost her to breast cancer in 2004. And then in 2006, he had this bench. And he goes there every day to spend a little time on this bench, honoring. Now, I admit it, I went all sentimental girly, and I'm like, oh man, that's so sweet that you do that. And I'm like, that's so beautiful that you still are honoring her memory. And he's like, oh, she deserves it.
Oh.
She deserves it.
That's lovely.
I know.
That's lovely.
So I can't begin to know all the details of their marriage or anything, but just from his point of view, he loved her and is still honoring her memory after all this time. So, so here's the problem. We like shortcuts. In our heart of hearts, we want the happily ever after. We
Sure.
want that lifelong love, that husband, we like, there was another story I heard about this couple who had a car accident, and they'd been married, I want to say many, many years. And they'd had a car accident and they were rushed to the ER, but it looked like neither one of them was going to make it. So they kept the two of them in the same room. Their hearts stopped beating at the same time.
I have heard that people that are very close, often after a long-term marriage, when one dies, the other dies shortly thereafter, if
Yeah.
not at the same freaking.
Yeah, I've
Wow.
heard that too. So I think in our heart of hearts, human beings, we desire connection and love. And so I think we want that, but to get there requires a lot of hard work. Like, look at any couple, whether married, not married, whatever their circumstance. If they have been together a long time and you ask them, what's your secret? Because I had done that a few times. I've seen people who've been together a long time, and I will ask, because frankly, I want to know. Inquiring minds want to know, how did you guys keep this going all this time? And they will always say to you, it is hard work. It is every single day recommitting to this relationship. It's learning how to get past hurt, learning how to resolve arguments, learning how to put your needs above theirs, but putting their needs above yours, but also when to compromise, how to get both your needs met.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's not, again, it's really, do you love this person enough to recommit to them every single day? And when you can say that, and you can weather any storm, then you're going to have that lifelong love.
Oh, that's
It's
beautiful.
not yeah, exactly. No guarantees, but you've got a better shot if you put the work in.
That's beautiful. Well, thank you for your wisdom today, Christina. I appreciate you.
I appreciate you too. Thank you for spending the time with me. I really enjoy our chats.
Yeah.